Welcome to this very special episode of the Blackhawks Insider podcast, where we have none other than Blackhawks general manager Kyle Davidson joining me, Kaylee, and Colby moments after the trade deadline has expired in what was an unprecedented NHL trade deadline. Talking to a lot of people who have been covering this league for a long time, including my on-air broadcast partners Troy Murray and Patrick Sharp. They've told me that they never saw a trade deadline as active as the 2023 NHL version. So it's really cool that we have the general manager Kyle Davidson on with us, a guy who brokered a lot of the madness before the trade deadline this year. Kyle, first of all, your thoughts on this, on how exceptional of a trade deadline this was, big picture. I mean, did you think that this was about as crazy of a trade deadline as one that you'd ever been a part of?
Yeah, it's even from last year, which was my first trade deadline in charge, that was pretty hectic, but we didn't have quite the activity that we did this time. And then obviously, with the Patrick Kane situation and the different trades we made, we were very active and we sold a lot of pieces, but through that, I think we gained some incredible future draft capital, put ourselves in a great situation to really build this the right way and invest in the future and really just capitalize on what is to come and what we've banked in the draft over the next couple of years. So, couldn't be happier with how it went. It was very busy, very hectic. The final day, the deadline day, was very quiet. We got a lot of our work, and much of the NHL got a lot of their work done in advance. But, I thought it was a great week or so and really happy with how things ended up.
So, Kyle, the day before deadline day, then Max Domi gets traded to the Dallas Stars. Can you just take us through what that day looked like for you and how many teams or how soon teams were calling you about Max Domi, and then kind of how it all came together, ironically, when they were playing against the Stars that night? It was a pretty emotional day for a lot of the players, and Luke Richardson, too, who had some really great things to say about the type of character that Max is in the room for the Hawks this season.
Yeah, no, that was, again, I've said it before, trading a player is not easy. Especially when they come in and they're such great professionals, great people, great players, that Max was, and he was a great representative for our organization. And so it's never easy to move someone like that. But, over the last couple of days, there was increased interest in Max. He's had a great season. And so, it came to the point where, there was a draft asset there that we just couldn't walk away from. And second round picks are very, very valuable, especially, in the situation we're in. And so we couldn't turn that down. And so we did make the move, but it's tough. It's tough to see such great people and players walk out the door. And so it's, not easy, but something we had to do, and happy with the return we got.
Well, look, I know this is a business, and at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the organization. But, just like looking around the league at the way things are being done, Kaner wasn't the only Hall of Famer of 15 plus seasons that got traded. And you just look at the stark contrast by how you handled the Kane trade, how you handled Marc-Andre Fleury getting traded last year. I kind of think of the word integrity. It seems like you're somebody who really keeps their word. And Jack Johnson has already said he'd like to come back here. Max Domi has not been gone for 48 hours. He would like to come back here. So is that something that we should kind of come to expect with you, Kyle, in your leadership style, is balancing that act of doing what's best for the organization while remembering you are trading people with families, with kids, with, more than just a number?
Yeah, it's always that balance you're trying to strike. And the one thing you're never going to compromise is treating people the right way, especially when they're here, right? And I think a lot of that, what you're hearing from players is how they're treated when they're here. And that's what we want. We want them to feel appreciated and enjoy their time in Chicago. And then, if it comes to pass that there's an opportunity elsewhere that where it's a mutually beneficial situation for us to, as an organization, to, receive something of benefit, but also you're taking care of the player, then that's a perfect merger of two positive things, right? And so I think it speaks more though to less trying to find them a good spot elsewhere is having them enjoy the experience of being a Blackhawk. And I think, not only does that come from me, I think, it's probably least of all myself, because I have not as much interaction as with the players, as the trainers, as the coaches, as, the people in the locker room. And so it speaks to the environment that the players are put into in our locker room more than anything. And so I think that's a testament to the locker room staff and the coaches. But it also speaks to the resources and the investment in taking care of our players that comes right from our ownership. And so it's an organizational compliment when players say that. I'm glad to share in that compliment because it means we're doing the right thing. But I think we just want to make sure players are as happy as possible and treated as respectfully as possible when they're with us.
How tired are you right now, Kyle?
Absolutely exhausted. I'm done. I can't. I've got a nice dinner set up with my wife and my mom and stepdad after a long day here, and I can't wait just to go and take a breath and have a good meal and just kind of shut the phone off for a couple hours. I'm excited. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like laughing. I'm so excited.
Yeah. How many hours of sleep have you averaged per night over the past week?
Oh, probably. I think if I got 4, it would probably be a good night. Probably be a strong night. There's a couple of them that I had, you're tossing and turning, trying to think about things, and I wake up having dreams of players that aren't even on our team that I'm like supposed to trade and stuff. Like it was crazy. And so it was. Did I make that? It was a a tiring week, but a productive one, and it's all worth it in the end. But you know what? That just I care. I wanna make this work. I want to do this right, and I want to get it right. And so that's why you're always thinking. That's why you're always putting pressure on yourself, is because you care to make things work out and get things right for the organization, for the fans.
Kyle, looking at some of the assets you acquired, the drafts, especially in 2023, but even beyond that, 2025, 2026, how do you evaluate in your philosophy, like balancing draft capital and making sure you don't have all these young prospects coming in the first couple rounds and contracts that you're going to have to deal with then? How would you evaluate, I guess, what you received this season and how that fits into your plan going back to last year as far as developing from within and building for the future here?
Yeah, you're always kind of balancing, and a lot of it is driven too when you're talking to teams, not only what you value in their system, but also what they value and what they will and won't give you. So, there's kind of some guardrails on that as well. If, it'd be great if we could go out and say, okay, we want a first round pick in this year, and then we want this prospect we really love who's 23 years old and ready to go, and we want that guy too. But it just, normally they won't give that up, right? It's just how it works, and your value of how you value certain assets and players is very similar, and so there's you're not going to get everything you need. But the thought on some of the draft picks that are a little further away is that over time those draft picks only increase in value as you get closer, and so whereas if you have a pick this year, you're pretty close to like either having to make that pick or having to trade back and push it to a further year. It's a little more under the gun to try and, act on that pick right away. So if we have some down the road, it gives us some time and gives us some maneuverability to, package those up, to consider where we are down the road and how our prospects have developed. If there's maybe some holes in our prospect pool that we're seeing through through maybe some gaps in our development that we want to fill, then we can use those draft picks at that time, once we give our prospects a little time to develop and see where everyone's at, versus needing an answer right now. And that's hard with young players because you don't know where they're going to grow to, where the ceiling is. So we want to give them time. We want to give them the opportunity to develop and realize what they're going to be and where their potential is headed before we have to start filling holes. And that's what future draft picks do. It gives us a little bit of time and a little bit of maneuverability in our process, in our future build of that roster down the road.
Well, Kyle, I can tell you two players you can't trade: Angelica and Willa, because they're sharing that house with you, by the United Center, and you certainly can't trade them. You said you're waking up having those dreams, and I'm laughing as you're telling Chris about how many hours a night you're sleeping, but I have a feeling you're still not going to be getting that much more sleep with such a young newborn at home, and kind of like going back a ways, right? Like kind of leading up to everything in your life as general manager, as a dad, all these things. When you were at the draft last year and you're sitting at that table and all of a sudden it's DeBrincat and then it's Kirby, and then you start, picking players in the first round, acquiring future picks. Like there's such a domino effect on all of how these things are connected. When you're sitting there, coming up with a plan with your team, is it going to plan? Are you happy with the way that things have progressed, from, let's say, the draft last year till where we are sitting here 20 minutes post-trade deadline, 2023?
Oh, yeah, I'm really happy. You go into the draft, and coming out of the draft, you like everyone. Everyone's great. You just pick them. They haven't played a game post-draft, and everyone's they're all exactly what you want, right? And fast forward to now where they've got a season under their belts, and I'm even more excited, which I don't think is always the case. That's not normal in this. There's always, maybe a player that falls behind, but I feel like all the players from that last draft class have really taken a step and then some. Kevin has taken a huge step again, another step. Frank, obviously with the injury, but he's come back and he's exactly what we thought we drafted. Sam Renzel, exactly what we thought we drafted. And then you go back further in the draft, and guys like Ryan Green and Aiden Thompson, Dominic James, they're all just taking these steps that we only hoped they would take. You never know how it's really going to work out a year out from the draft, but they've all taken a huge step and done everything that we hoped they would do. And so we're really excited about that. And through that, you grow your what was already a confidence in our amateur scouting group. You're even more confident, and you believe even more in your ability to find players. And now we've got serious draft capital moving forward, which heading into the draft, where I just named Kevin, Frank, and Sam, we didn't have any of those picks walking to drive or flying to Montreal last year. Now we've got 2 picks, and then we've got a bunch in the second this year, and flexibility to maybe do some more damage and getting into the first round. Again, hopefully we'll see how that works out, but we've got so many options, and we've got a group of amateur scouts that I'm so confident in that, this is how you build things the right way. And that patience and that timeline that we're given is that's a credit to our ownership in trying to do this the right way, but that's how you do it right. That's how you get it right. And that's how you can build a special group. And I couldn't be more thrilled with where we are right now and how the steps have gone so far.
So Kyle, along those lines, take draft night, for example, in 2022, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, the Blackhawks go from no first round draft picks to 3. Is there a pressure or an expectation that maybe you even put on yourself to have the home run trade every time? I mean, the real headline grabber, oh my gosh, we get A+ grades on this trade. Or, are there times when you have to just say to yourself, okay, this isn't a sexy trade, but this is still a step in the right direction of where we want to go?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't, a lot, the media has to do a job, right? And where it's like, who won that trade, who lost that trade. But for the most part, it's kind of silly, right? Because if we, quote unquote, win or lose a trade, it's going to depend in our case right now on how we draft. And so if we don't do our job at the draft table with these picks and get it right there, then we're not doing well. And that evaluation is down the road. And you're just looking to gain assets, whether people think that's a big trade, a small trade. We're just trying to get what we need to build our roster down the road. and we've got a valuation on what our players are that we might try and sell off for those future assets. And if we get that, then we're going to take it, despite what people think we should or shouldn't get. You should get this many picks for that player. Well, you know what? We've canvassed the market, and that's not necessarily the case. That's not what the market dictates. And you can only do as well as the best offer that's out there. And so that's kind of how we evaluate things. You know what? If the market isn't there, then we don't do it. And if it is there, then we will. And so, I don't care about making the biggest trades. I don't care about making the best trades that everyone thinks, we may have won, but we're just trying to get whatever we need to build that future roster, because honestly, in a couple of years, that it's going to be a different conversation. We're going to be talking about players that we drafted that have or haven't developed. And so that's the next conversation. So we just, we put our heads down and we grind and just do the work and try and make the best decisions along the way, because that's how we win our own situation. We're not trying to beat anyone else in these situations. We're just trying to win our own situation.
Kyle, as much as this is the busiest time of year for you, and of course, like, you want to be closer to winning a championship, that's the end goal. Is this one of the most exciting parts for you as you look at this rebuild? And this is kind of the bread and butter for, like you said, the amateur scouts, the player development coaches. Like, this is where you're really sinking your teeth in and you're going to lay out your blueprint. I mean, how do you kind of map out when the next set of challenges is going to come and how you evaluate this team? Is this sort of the most exciting part for you? And like you said, having all this draft capital, and now you're getting to make all the decisions and kind of carve your own path out now in year two.
Yeah, to me, the trade deadline for, there's a couple of stages here. Like, the trade deadline to me it's hard. Like, some people think it's fun. Like, I think it's pretty stressful, to be honest, because, I don't, again, like I mentioned before, when we're talking about these players, I don't like moving players out. That's not fun, because I believe players like playing here, and in trading them, you're moving them out of a situation that they like. Now, granted, they might be going to a new situation where winning is something that's available to them, and that is fun, but it's tough. And so, yeah, getting those future assets is great. It's fun. But, the part that's really exciting for me would be the, putting the plan into action once we have the assets. So that's at the draft. That's at, the trade market when you're acquiring players. Selling players off that's not fun. It's part of what we have to do, but it's not too fun. The draft and acquiring and bringing talent in, that's the fun part. And that's what we're getting to moving forward here as we try and build that roster down the road.
Well, I'm gonna go a little off the board here, but now that the trade deadline's done, what's been the biggest adjustment for you with your new life of being a dad? I mean, I know you're like one of my parent advisors. I'm always grilling you for information about it here, but right. What's been the biggest surprise for you, and how much are you looking forward to maybe having a little bit more free time to spend with your daughter?
Yeah, honestly, I think the one thing that I knew it all along, and but you learn, is like how amazing my wife is and how lucky I am to have a wife that supports me and just wants me to be great at my job and gives me the freedom to do that. We had a couple road trips in the last little while, and I thought, it'll be, maybe get on the road and I'll just like grind and work and that'll take my mind off home. But like, you miss home so much, and you worry that you're not around, and you want to help out. But, having that reassurance from home that everything's good, we've got this, Will is doing great. Like, that's, that you can't put a price or a level of an appropriate level of appreciation on that. And then you get home and you see, she's growing, she's getting bigger, and like, you've kind of missed some of these stages. So it's, you want to be home. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is spending some extra time at home and maybe giving my wife a break instead of her giving me all this leeway. I think it's time for her to get a little break herself. And so hopefully I can provide that over the next little while and be a little more present than I have been as of late.
On that note, quick, Kyle, just what's one of the things that Willa's doing right now, or one of the most rewarding parts when you get home? What do you love about doing with Willa or seeing her as she grows and makes those changes? What's she doing right now?
I think now it's just she's able to track and see and recognize you, right? And so that smile comes out and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. This is the best. When you realize she recognizes you and just has that big smile and is excited to see you, that's the best feeling in the world. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Well, your smile says it all. Sorry, Chris, but I'm watching you here as we're talking to you, and your cheekbones are touching your ears talking about your family. So
that's my daughter and the sleep deprivation. Yeah.
You're a great dad, great GM.
Yeah.
Angelica's killing it. It's going well.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. You tell Angelica from us that we think she deserves a bottle of wine for getting through the trade deadline.
Or a nice vacation or something.
Yeah. I know. Hey, I know. I'm aware. Yeah. And she does deserve it. So, yeah.
Kyle, you have been so accessible to us and lots of other media outlets through this entire process, and it's almost unheard of in this industry. So we really appreciate it. You've been so personable through this entire process, as stressful as it is, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming on, and again, congratulations on the moves that you made to advance this organization forward, and it took a lot of conviction to make them, and we're really excited for what the future has in store.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, that was an amazing conversation with Kyle, and to echo what I told him before we said so long, he's been so great through this entire process. And, for me, going through this trade deadline experience really for the first time, and seeing Patrick Kane get traded, seeing Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty get traded, Jack Johnson, Max Domi, all within, a 3 or 4 day span, there was a lot of shock value. It was emotional being around the team at the United Center when these deals were going down. And I think it's easy to get lost in your feelings about all of the activity that's happened over the past few days. But when you really step back and look at the big picture, this is all part of Kyle Davidson's plan that he outlined when he became the full-time general manager about 1 year ago. So that makes it really exciting for me as I try and process this, that, hey, this is just this was a big step, but this was the next step in the plan to move this organization forward and get the team back into playoffs and Stanley Cup contention. So it's been quite a week for me. I was just on the sidelines. I mean, admittedly, I had a great view, a great seat for all of this action, but I mean, this was quite a week to be a part of, and I feel like I'm catching my breath from all of this as well. Colby, I don't know how you've been around hockey a lot longer than I have, but I don't know if you feel any type of way based on everything that's gone down this week.
I do actually think, Chris, that this year was a little bit different. I mean, look, I've been traded before, so there is some desensitization. Like I'm a little desensitized from it. I might have just made up the word desensitization, by the way.
No judgment here. No
full
judgment
transparency.
Here.
But
we know what you meant.
Yeah, okay. So I feel a little desensitized to a lot of the trades because I've been traded, and out of nowhere, not at the trade deadline, rolled up for practice one day. Hey, the GM needs to talk to you. Thought I was either, I thought I was getting sent back to the minors. I never in a million years thought that was happening. And then it was just like, whoa, the world is spinning. So, but this year was different. And the reason that I feel like it was a little different was because there was a lot of transparency, which is what you were just talking about, Chris. Kyle laid out a plan, and he's very much stuck to that plan. And I bring this up from time to time that, I'm from Philadelphia. I grew up in Philadelphia. I worked in Philadelphia, and I sort of see where they are as an organization. And I see how upset everyone is there because there is no plan. There's no transparency and no plan. No one can figure out what the general manager's doing. Ownership. I mean, it's a cluster. And I think that people here understand the plan, and I think that helps. people aren't angry or frustrated because they understand, yes, it's emotional. I mean, I was, I saw Shilpa yesterday at the United Center, who's been working here for all the cups.
Years, yeah.
I mean, she's been here for every cup, and like, it was emotional for her because this is like her family and a lot of people's family. And so I do understand that. And I think the Patrick Kane one for me was like the biggest, obviously, because that just sends shockwaves through the entire sport of hockey and really the whole sports world. It's not just hockey when a player like that gets traded, but I do appreciate sort of the integrity that Kyle handled these situations with. I mean, Max Domi said yesterday he had been in communication with Kyle in the morning, but he was still a Blackhawk at the time. So like, I just think that is the difference that I noticed this year, Chris, that I've never seen before in a pro sports organization, is that level of transparency, that level of sort of integrity, and sort of the human nature of the way that they handled all these situations. And Kaylee, you grew up around this game. Your dad was traded. You've lived this in a different role, but you've lived it probably more than anyone, really. I mean, and so I'm curious if maybe you see or felt that as well, or if you've seen it before, or maybe we're too close to it. I don't really know. But I'd be kind of curious to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I was going to say the same thing as you as far as transparency and what Kyle Davidson has done, the way he's carried himself since becoming general manager. There was a need and a desperation for direction with this organization, and they sort of needed to start from scratch, bring in a leadership group and lay the foundation. So I totally echo your sentiment in that regard. As far as being traded, sure. My dad was in a different position with the Blackhawks than Patrick Kane. So I know when Patrick asked my dad about getting traded, he had asked a couple other former Blackhawks, including his teammate Duncan Keith. It was just different situation. But yeah, obviously being traded, and the one thing that I thought was really unique, and when you talk about the way Kyle handled the Kane trade specifically, with class, with grace, with respect, Kane is going to be welcome back here forever. I remember when my dad came back to be acknowledged for something and he was booed. It was tough. He went to Detroit. They were rivals. It was heated. And, my dad felt really bad for us, even though we didn't care, because he was being booed. And there's a lot of emotions, and it's exciting to be you love the fans, but they can be hard on you sometimes. So there's certainly a human element. Kyle described that, and like he said, it's not fun to have to send guys away and treat them like assets and not people, especially somebody like Kyle, who's been around Patrick Kane and watched him grow up and has been in this organization. Who better than someone within like Kyle to handle his departure the way he did? So I just want to say, yeah, I agree. The way that he's carried himself, the organization has set a plan in motion, and they're checking all the boxes right now. So as a Blackhawks fan, even more so than last year, this year, I'm still excited. That's not easy to say in a rebuild. They're the dog days. I've talked to a couple of GMs before who are going through the rebuild, and it's a grind. But I will say this first year has been a very pleasant surprise, and I'm still enjoying it. The players still seem to be enjoying it, and this is probably the hardest week of the season for all of them as a group, just getting dismantled after putting together a pretty impressive run under this coaching staff and leadership group.
Yeah. Well, and look how LA handled Jonathan Quick. I mean, 2 Stanley Cups, Hall of Fame career, 15 years in LA. And, Quickie walked out of the locker room after playing a game on the East Coast, and somebody walked up to him from the organization and handed him a cell phone and said, "Here, you got to talk to Rob." Like, those guys were teammates. Rob Blake and Jonathan Quick were teammates on the LA Kings before Rob Blake was the GM versus player. So, I mean, when you hear that and you see how that was handled, you send him to Columbus, a non-playoff team. It's like unfathomable that there was, and they never had a conversation with him in advance. I know this because we're represented by the same representation. And so it's crazy. And when you compare and contrast, and I kind of said it to Kyle, but I didn't want to go into it because Kyle will never say a bad word about it. Like, that's just not his style. But, like, I will, because, like, I was disgusted by that. I really was. I couldn't believe how LA handled that. And Chris, you know, going back to your original thought, just look at the stark contrast in how the organizations have handled their franchise icons, because Quick is a franchise icon in LA as well.
It's been quite a week. There will be plenty of new faces, names, and numbers on the ice wearing Blackhawks sweaters over the final 20 games, but it's never a dull moment. And to echo what Kaylee said, I'm still really excited for the rest of the season and for what's in store. And it's going to be as interesting of an offseason as there's ever been for this franchise as well. So this will wrap up our very special Blackhawks Insider Podcast trade deadline episode, as my computer light just went out. So if that's not a cue to wrap things up, I don't know what is. We'll be back on our regular weekly schedule next week. So thanks very much for sticking with us through the trade deadline twists and turns. For Kaylee, Colby, I'm Chris. Our thanks once again to Kyle Davidson for joining us today, Jenna Rose and Trevor Bray, our producers, and as always, Brad Dollar and Southside Jake for the music featured on the podcast. Fans, our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Any more content you want to consume or digest, it's always available at blackhawks.com. We will talk to you next week. Can't wait. What's on the agenda for the next episode of the Blackhawks Insider Podcast. Talk to you then.